One of the things that we really liked about the curly horses was also their unique heritage, and it's kind of a mystery. A lot of people say it's one of the big mysteries in the horse industry as to where they come from and how they got here, and different places they pop up in history, even all around the world. But one of the things that fascinated me the most was their Native American history here in this country, in the United States, and tracing their history and the fact that they come from the Native Americans, which is kind of neat for me because I also have a little bit of Native American history of my own. But the curly horses have been found to be in several winter count drawings from the Lakota Sioux, where they depict them in their telling of their stories and great things that happened in their tribes and stuff throughout the years. They would have a winter count, which was drawings that they would make on a buffalo hide to depict important events during the year. And curly horses are actually shown in several of those drawings. In things as Custer's Last Stand and the Battle of Little Bighorn, there's depictions of curly horses being there. It's very well known that Sitting Bull himself actually had curly horses, and they were highly prized by Sitting Bull and by the tribes people. They were a lot of times only allowed to be handled and touched by the chief or the medicine man of the tribe. They were highly prized. Matter of fact, the Crow and the Sioux would steal them from each other, and that's also depicted in those winter count drawings that I mentioned.
I had fallen in love, deeply in love with the curlies and the curly horses, and I felt very comfortable with Chester as a stallion. So I was contacted, met a friend through one of the registries, and he said there are curly Mustangs that were being gathered in Rocky Hills Herd Management Area, Nevada. And I had read about the area and the ranchers, the DeMalley family, who had been several generations of ranchers in that area, and they found curly Mustangs and found that these wonderful horses were perfectly suitable for the ranching activities, and the curls were a benefit. So I immediately agreed to help find homes for the curly Mustangs that were gathered from Rocky Hills. It's really amazing. I had the opportunity to see the area where Golden Red and Blossom were gathered. They were gathered because they had no water and they had no food. And I have videos of them at their gather, and I also know how they appeared when I first brought them home. So it's clear to me these horses would have starved. They would not have survived. And the opportunity to meet wonderful people along the way and sharing about the curly Mustangs, and they're taking the opportunity to learn and open their hearts and their homes to these curly Mustangs, have given me wonderful friends. So I feel I'm helping both the human and the horse. When I adopted, and it's been a few years since I've adopted, so things may have changed, but from my memory, it was the simple, you must be 18 years old, you must not have been convicted of animal abuse. You must have a livestock trailer to transport the Mustang from a BLM adoption facility. Also, the facility must meet the requirements based on the age of the horse. But an adult Mustang should have at least 6 feet of fencing, and it cannot be barbed wire, it cannot be electrical wire. It needs to be very secure and sturdy and safe, most importantly safe. I believe it's 20 feet by 20 feet for the corral. They must have shelter. Part of the application process is that we do a diagram of our corrals. They call it the facility, and there are requirements that need to be met to adopt a Mustang, and they do vary by age. We have the corral, we have the stall that's attached to the corral, and behind our stall we've created a closet and a walkway so that we can feed them from the back, and that way if it's wet or if the horse is still uncomfortable, that we can go in without being unsafe, or I can have someone helping me without being unsafe with an untrained Mustang or untrained horse. Attached to that is an alleyway, much like you would find in a barrel racing arena or any type of arena. And it allows the horse, for me to bring the horse that I want to work with out. So once we found the alleyway, helped us to come back to our round pen. The beauty of this is it allows us, when we bring the curly Mustang or untrained horse to the facility, we simply back up to the gate so there's no unsafe action. We back the trailer, because again, remember, part of the requirements with BLM is that the horse be picked up in a livestock trailer. So you simply open the gate and you back in, and the horse can come on out. You have the option of having your Mustang haltered when you pick them up. We actually don't choose to do that. We find that haltering is a very private connection that we find important with our Mustangs. The size, as I mentioned earlier, is important, and you'll notice that the wood with the non-climb fence meets the requirement of 6 feet, and the corral size 20 by 20, and then the stall, and then the area behind, so that we can have accessibility for their getting extra hay and things until we're comfortable that it's safe for someone to enter.
I'm Marion Herman. My husband and I moved from the Netherlands to Kentucky and started this ranch in 2010. I grew up on a Friesian breeding farm in the Netherlands, and when we started here, I wanted to breed horses, but not just to breed. I wanted to make sure it was a breed that was wanted and it was special. And then I remembered the curly horses, since my dad is allergic to horses. So I did some research, and I found out about their character and how family orientated they are, but at the same time how versatile. So you can also do sports like dressage or jumping or ranch work, anything you want. So that really intrigued me. So then I started looking for breeders in the United States while I was still in the Netherlands. And I kept coming back to one breeder, and I really liked her breeding program and her horses. And we started talking, and I ended up buying horses from her. And this is one of them. This is Warrior Freedom. And then at the same time, I also bought a 9-year-old colt, and he became my breeding stallion. We probably had about 12 foals from him, and all of them were sold immediately. So we quickly added another stallion and more mares. And before we knew it, we had 34 horses.
I've fallen in love with the breed for many reasons. The hypoallergenic feature is amazing, and it helps so many people who otherwise would be unable to be with horses or ride. But I really adore their personalities. They want to partner. They have, I feel, less vices. They have wonderful quality Mustang traits, which include the strong, sturdy hooves. And yes, their curly coats. Mother Nature did a wonderful job of keeping them warm and capable of surviving elements that other breeds need coats. But I still go back to the personality, and that's really important to me, especially when you're partnering in the saddle. They're still horses, there's no doubt, but I've had the opportunity to meet different breeds, and this is my breed of choice.
I had never heard of curly horses, despite growing up here in Kentucky, in the horse capital of the world. Oh, I always wanted horses in my life, but I was horribly allergic. I took equitation classes when I was in college, and the kids always used to laugh at me that I took classes with, because I would go with every pocket I had stuffed with as many tissues as I could possibly get in them. And by the end of class, I couldn't breathe and was pouring out of my nose and my eyes and everything. And so I kind of gave that dream up till later, and thought maybe someday I would have horses in my life, but I was just going to have to, my body was just going to have to deal with it. I was just going to have horses in my life anyway. We had our son and got married and all that, and my son and I went on a field trip to the Kentucky Horse Park, and they have a parade of breeds there where they bring out a bunch of different breeds and they tell all about them and their characteristics and the history of the breed and that kind of thing. And they brought a horse out towards the end and said it was a curly horse, and I thought, well, that's really cool. I've never seen that before. And then at the end of his little speech about the horses, he said, oh, and by the way, they're hypoallergenic. Well, gosh, I nearly leapt off the bleachers, couldn't get over to the booth quick enough to talk to the man about them. And he happened to have a brochure and gave me a brochure about the curly horses, and I think it was about from the ABC registry at that time. So immediately went home and started researching them and checking them out. At that time, there wasn't any in the state that we knew of to go see, because we needed to double check for my allergies to see, you know, if I wasn't going to be allergic before we dove in and got horses. So we drove all the way to Tennessee to see our first curly horses. And if anybody that's had allergies knows, you know, it was hard to first go up and touch them, because I knew if I did and I was allergic, I would pay for it for days. But once I got over that initial fear and started petting and rubbing on them, and I didn't have any reactions, couldn't wait to get up some of our own.
They always say the gentle giants, and in our case that's very true. Our biggest one is Friendly Bob. He's 16 hands, maybe a little over 16 hands, and he truly is a gentle giant. However, we also have our little one who is 14 inches, that's Gunsmoke, and he is really, really sweet also. He is easygoing. He is a stud though, and he has a little bit of a little man syndrome, but he's very easy to maintain. A lot of curly breeders / owners always say, oh, the curlies, they're so easygoing and blah blah blah, which is very true. They are easy to train, they are easygoing, but there's a really fine line. Curlies are super smart, they're highly intelligent, and they are thinkers. And a lot of people go too fast, too quick, which makes them insecure because they don't get the time to think about things. I always see it like a teeter-totter. It's really easy to bring him up, but as soon as you cross over and you flip him to the other side, it's really hard to get them back. It's not a quarter horse who is like a border collie, like a quarter horse, who have that will to please, and that they have it, but in a different level. I think a lot of trainers miscommunicate with that as being a stubborn horse, and they just push him through it, and that can ruin a curly horse very easily. But I really enjoy training and working with him because I got to know them. I believe that you cannot just take a curly horse to any kind of trainer, especially a trainer who is into big sports or stuff, because they want to go too fast, and they need that split second to think about something you ask them to do. And once the quarter falls, they know, and they will never forget. But also the bad things. So they're highly intelligent is something that's been overlooked sometimes, and being confused with being stubborn. They're not stubborn, they're just smart, super smart. Aren't you? He says yes.